There are some discussions on the internet about a concept which is named Zionism. And a lot of people are asking constantly left and right, what the heck is that? What it does it want to do? And why is it that it is so constantly found only in Europe throughout the last 1000 years? And well, far more recently in America. See, if you want to understand, Zionism is not something new. Zionism as a term is new since it was created and coined as a term in around the 19th century. Karl Marx and I don't know other such people were avid followers of that. I don't remember exactly the year, I think it was either 18th or 19th century and such. But the idea of Zionism was incorporated in a very famous book, most likely a lot of people have heard of it, and it's called the Communist Manifesto. Yes, the Communist Manifesto was designed by the idea of Zionism, and it included a few critical chapters. The first and most important one was the eradication of the white race, or what they branded as the white race. See, the concept of race was designed by Blumenbach, as per some sources, around the 17th or 18th century, somewhere in America, because of the trade with black people. And a lot of the white people were starting to kind of wake up and were saying, why do we need to have all these people imprisoned and made use of? They are just like us, humans. So they needed to create a fake thesis about how humans are designed as races and how some are more superior than the others, right? So the first chapter was obviously the destruction of the white race. Now, if you look at some of the Zionist examples, like George Soros, Biden, and many others of these, Zuckerberg, they are also white by color. But they don't care much about that because Zionism is all about extermination of everyone else but themselves. It is nothing else but a rebranding, a newer term coined after the Talmud, right? The Talmudic teachings of Judaism, those adorable teachings about how the Jews are chosen by God to exterminate all other people because, well, they have been narcissists who followed through suffering and suffered a lot in life. And, well, a narcissist, well, needs to take vengeance, right? If you look carefully at the history of the Jewish people, they have had several unpleasant events, and, well, some of them actually went so mad that they went about inventing a new set of beliefs that cuddled their egos. This is not to portray all Jewish people as being evil or bad, because all nations have had such people, right? But Zionism is a burning rage, right, of narcissism, of somewhat covert narcissism, because it doesn't want to post itself on the front pages. It wants to lie hidden until it strikes, right? And it always makes use of others to strike because, well, it is written somewhere in the Judaic writings that, the Jew must always have the others work for them and not do the work themselves, right? If you look in the Talmud, it also says, if a goyim's girl is at least 9 years of age, well, she can be raped, right, by the Jew. And, well, there are other hideous aspects about it, reason why it is not published in different languages. But as I said, the concept of race is something that they had to invent in order to keep people dumbed down. The same pseudo theses that they created about COVID and all other things. Everything is somewhat manufactured, and then with the help of so-called influencers and opinion shapeshifters, as I call them, and opinion shifters also, they are simply inducing things into people's minds so that their agendas are obediently served. Another point on that aspect was the idea of destruction of the what nowadays they call as the traditional family, mother, father, and child, right? They want that exterminated because being slaves of all their misery throughout this time, misery which they invested that much time, aka what was rebranded as Zionism, well, they can't simply give up on it, right? They have to keep the show going. So the point is, well, they can't embrace the idea of birth anymore because, well, to them it is life, right? It is suffering because that is the life of a narcissist. It is just suffering. It's only endless suffering, nothing more, nothing less. So the point about this is very, very simple. As they go further and further into this madness with each new generation, they obviously end up hating life even more. If you take any sane psychiatrist and profiler especially, they will tell you that George Soros, for example, is someone who hates humans in a pathological way, so it is not curable. They will do everything possible to exterminate people. And as a narcissist functions, when they have to hurt you, or, well, if they go further, even kill you, they will have to invent all sorts of reasons to do that. Because, see, Zionists and how they function, they simply couldn't deal well in the Asian world. Because in Asia, all societies were very brutal, but they had somewhat of a structure. In Europe, the idea of free travel was a bit more existent. The people there didn't mind strangers that much, which allowed them the time throughout the hundreds of years, till the present day, to simply arrange themselves where they had to and to conquer key positions when it came to economy, for example, banks and loaning and the such. We know some of these commie deals of theirs. And they're doing them today as well by impoverishing people and killing them through hunger, right? There's no, you know, the reason, well, you're having movies like Hunger Games. You don't have those for nothing. It's basically them telling you how they want you to live your lives, right? If you don't want to believe that because you're still currently too comfortable in your house, take a look in Palestine and in other countries ravaged by their systems. And nowadays they're calling it the traditional family because they want it to sound obsolete, and they want to impose different new agendas. And then obviously they want to destroy the idea of a woman. That is why they created feminism. That is why they created adverts that made women look good when they smoke, when they do drugs, when they do everything possible, so that the quality of their body declines very much. And when that does, they won't be able to bear birth to wonderful children. They will give birth to horrible demons, to horrible, incomplete children that will be nothing else than the new generation of monsters, which, well, basically has been going on for the last hundreds, if not thousands of years, because we still live in a sick society despite the technology and despite the far superior possibilities that we have in life compared to the previous generations. So when it comes to taking this idea of what Zionism is, and, well, when you look at the Communist Manifesto, well, you will see that technically Communist Manifesto is kind of the Bible of Zionism, and it is exactly what it wants to do. In the Asian worlds, there was quite some chaos, a lot of murders, wars, struggles, and the such. It wasn't worth much for them because it wasn't much of a calm world. In the European aspect, in the European part of the world, things were a bit more peaceful. There were a few wars here and there, but there weren't too many populations, too big populations, and at the same time, birth rates weren't that big. So they started doing their own Zionistic deals and the such, like murdering people cyclically, because, well, you've been taught about the Black Plague, but one day you will be told that what you have been knowing is all wrong, because you will one day hear that papality, one of the greatest traitors of humanity, well, has been ordering those poisonings of the people. When the Zionists came into Romania 200 years ago, they did the same thing. They built, since Romania back then was 90% of the country was agrarian, and 90% of the population was, well, they were farmers. They built or purchased many of the taverns in the towns and especially in the villages, and they started selling poisoned wine, because you have to understand these people function by the idea of sacrifice. Cyclically, they have to sacrifice people. You'll be surprised, but there is a factory in Romania which is ruled by whoever nobody knows, but one of the little things that it does is sacrifice children because it needs to create certain amino acids and I don't know what not. In case this is something new for you, well, the beauty industry, so-called beauty industry, actually uses rejected fetuses in order to obtain some of the amino acids that are needed for some of the beauty products. or whatever they call them. I'm not a girl, I do not make use of the such, so honestly, I'm not accustomed to the names of the such. But those things that rimel or whatever they're called, that girls put on their face in order to look better. And so on. You have to understand, in a sick society of narcissism, nothing goes to waste. Everything will be used. You'll be useful even beyond your life, because one way or another, someone will profit out of your death. A lot of the people, especially people who are very poor, what do? They just gather all the nonsense, all the useless things, right? And when they die, someone else takes them, because when someone dies, they're not going to take those with them. So you have to understand the idea of sacrifices, human sacrifices, that you've been seeing in movies and most likely getting accustomed to. Well, that is something quite common for the idea of the Zionistic zeal, because the Talmud also says one thing. See, the Goyims, aka the non-Jews, are people that, well, they are not humans. They are below beasts, they are below animals, and the only purpose the Jew has is to kill them, because, wait, why not? When you look at places in the world like Epstein's Island and the such, what do you see? Well, rapes, child rapes, assaults, manhunts, all sorts of these things. They're doing these for sport because, well, you know, they can't cherish life, they can't understand life because life to them is eternal pain. And also, let's not forget, the greatest fear of all narcissists is death, the fear of death. So, if we think a bit about this, you also remind from the Talmud that it also says killing a goyim with your own hands is how God will love you, right? If you kill them with your hands, God will love you even more. So if you kill goyims, or aka non-Jews, God will love you, and they will love you even more if you kill them with your own hands. So you have to understand these people respect what they think is God for them. One of the reasons why I've been reminding people that God is a way through which we can imagine reality. But if you take all the religions into account, they all have different ways of portraying creation. But ultimately, it's just a personification. So when you look at feminism nowadays, it is nothing else but a product of that. It is a branch of the idea of Judaism, which became, in its offensive way, as it was taken, it became Zionism. Zionism was coined very late, but people, fucked up people who served this idea, this corrupt, offensive version of Judaism, well, especially the Talmudic teachings, well, these people have been following these for a very long time. You have one of the well-known people, I forgot her name, is a relative of Bill Gates, a woman whose quote entered the history of America, and she said the greatest thing you can do for your child is kill them, right? Nowadays, her descendants, and well, not Bill Gates themselves, but other descendants of them are supporting the idea of child abortion. They're saying it is a good thing, but every time mass media tells you that something is good, you have to do a 180 and simply get the fuck out of there, right? Because that is only an invitation to their own prison. How do narcissists function? They invite you into their miserable world, and then they crumble you from all directions with the experience that they have. Dealing with a narcissist is exactly like dealing with an idiot. Don't mess with them because they will always have more experience in pain than you, in dealing it, in cheating and denying and doing all sorts of things. They're very good, even experts at turning your own energy against you. Yes, slowly and surely they will chip you away. So you have to understand also those people behind what is now capitalism, as I call it capitalism, and obviously communism. They obviously are the same side. They just did social experiments one after the other to see how the people function. Now that the age of Aquarius has started and the age of truth has begun, their workings and plans will start failing because people are no longer under that much ignorance anymore. And well, the age of Pisces has gone. The age of blindly following the truth is what also allowed the main religions, the Abrahamic ones, to exist so fervently, Because, well, if you keep people in ignorance, that is the only way how you can prove yourself or make yourself superior to those. It is a very scummy strategy ultimately, but it's all about turning the game from a multiplayer game into a single player one. And narcissists can never get tired of this, even if it is ultimately the lowliest you can do. Turning others into primitives so that you can rule them. Well, you can see the same behavior that they've been doing thousands of years of history, of keeping people impoverished, not schooled, killing the wise ones so that the masses simply remain with no capability of being woken up and being made use of and tortured and butchered slowly and surely. We can see this trend in how USA have been dealing with, well, the administrations of USA, not Americans themselves, not the people, but you have to understand that it's the same idea. Where the administration has sent American armies, they have obviously left only disasters. What have they been calling it? Well, they've always been calling it for freedom, right? And also collateral damage, right? Because when the enemies are dying, it's called a victory. When innocents are dying, well, how do they call it? Collateral damage, because ultimately, it doesn't matter in the end. The same wars that were started by, the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, it's still a Zionistic aspect, even if they played a defensive role. They swore when they signed the deal with Russia that they will not make any step to the east. And yet they made 5 steps to the east, incorporating most European countries, which posed as a threat to Russia. So when they wanted to also incorporate Ukraine so that they can put missiles and weapons in there, well, that obviously would start a war sooner or later. Why? It's written in the Communist Manifesto. The destruction of Europe is imperative, and in order to do that, they have to destroy the two main engines of the country, Germany and Russia. Why do you think the world wars were started in Germany? Because that is the country that they had to destroy first. What happened at the same time with Russia? Well, the Bolshevik Revolution, right? Don't forget, Zionism is based off of Bolshevism. What did the Bolsheviks do in Russia? They killed over 66 million people. They divided the country in bits and then they started genociding people, giving each of the commissar, or well, let's say each of the leader of those bits of land, a number of people that they had to kill at least. And then after they would finish it, they would gather in the Comintern and all of them would wildly roar and cheer that they wanted to kill even more. Because you have to understand, that is all Zionism is about. So stop whining and complaining about how cruel the world can be when it is ruled by such savages. And Zionists are not the only savages, because a sick society that we live in will obviously give birth to more. And they always seek such people, such debilitated people, to incorporate into their own, right? But not necessarily the rulership, but just people to be made use of, because your leaders are most likely servicing such fuckers as well. So if you're wondering why these people are doing so much evil and whether they can be cured, I hope this video actually gave you the answer. Hopefully this video raised a bit of awareness. You are appreciated. Take care, enjoy life, and this being said, Ferenc Board signing out.